This is the first Sunday in Lent. And as with every year, our first Sunday is the Sunday we talk about Jesus' temptation. Now, there's a lot of symbolism in this story in Matthew 4 that is particularly taps into the understanding of the Hebrew people that would have been around Jesus and would have heard this for the first time. First of all, you have to understand that this is a spiritual story. It is not a biological story. Anybody who's coming in with hard science is going to look at this and say 40 days without water and food? That's not how the human body can function. Even if we extend it to Jesus was God incarnate, we are failing to miss we're missing the point here. For the Hebrew culture, 40 was hugely significant. It meant God fulfilling your promises. Numerology was a big part of the Hebrew tradition. So we get the 40 days in the desert. We get the 40 days of the Israel nation walking around after they left Egypt. We get Noah. 40 days of flood. We get Moses 40 days in the mountains talking with God. So always when you see 40 days, there's this subtext that we're talking about God's gifts, God's promises, fulfillment of those promises. So here we have Jesus, the number 40, in a place where he's talking, spending time with God. Now, our Trinitarian theology wants to remind us that Christ is God incarnate. So we have to remember that this is not Jesus and another being talking. This is a spiritual conversation where Jesus is writing himself for his physical ministry, reviewing what the relationship is, what his job is as God incarnate, as the Son of God, as the one who is going to do the things that humanity needs done. So he's in the desert and he is struggling. Remember, he's just come off of baptism if we're following the biblical narrative. So he's just come off of baptism where the Spirit of God has come down and said, listen to him. This is my beloved, whom I'm well pleased. Every gospel kind of has a slightly different take on this. But he immediately goes to be in prayer, be in quiet, be in reflection, which is a fantastic lesson for all of us who are so excited about a new event that we don't run headlong into it before we have prepared ourselves. This is also a huge lesson for churches about people who come to us and want to do stuff. That is great, but cool your jets. Kind of sit tight for a minute. Let's find out where you actually fit in rather than overwhelm you and then you'll be leaving sooner rather than later. So again, metaphor and symbol in this story. So Jesus is waiting, he's sitting, he's praying, and then temptation comes. And we have the language in the English translation of Satan. Hasatan, which was translated as diablos in I can't remember if that's Greek or Latin, but over time, over history, that was assumed to be an actual entity. But that's not the case. Temptation has always been part of the Hebrew tradition. And it was like an advocate. It was like a cross-examiner in the legal field. So part of Jesus preparing for where he's going, what he has to do, and what the end results are going to be, he has to put himself in the frame of mind that, yes, I will be able to be in this world without being tempted, without being conned, without being convinced to leave my mission for my own comfort and my own benefit and my own power. Very huge metaphors that we can all take with us, those of us who are in leadership, about how we cannot exploit others, things we have to watch out for to make sure that we're not the ones that are falling for it. So the first thing we have is raising stones turning into bread. And Jesus says we don't live by bread alone, but by the word of God. Jesus, as a hungry person, is wanting to eat, according to the story, but he resists. The bigger message here is abundance gets in the way of our relationship with God. This is the beginning of the progressive Lenten feast too. I've got a whole video series and workbooks that are coming out. The link will be in my in the information about this sermon when I get that all sorted through. It's not a freebie. It's one of these paid to study because it's actually quite in depth. But the whole idea with fasting, the whole idea of Jesus' prayer is that we do not take in the things that distract us, because having excess distracts us. Have you ever noticed where you go into someone and they're always telling you how much money they spent? And like somehow that's an accomplishment. It's a distraction. These things don't have actual value or meaning. They just have a price tag. So that's the kind of thing that Jesus is warning us about in all of this. Do not be caught up and distracted by comfort, by abundance, by excess. We need the Word of God in our world, in our being, in our very existence. That is how we follow and how we keep the connection. So that's temptation number one. And then the Hasatan, the Tempter, takes Jesus to a city into the top pinnacle. And he says, throw yourself down here. I'm sure the angels will catch you. Well, that is testing God in a way that we're not asked to. So part of the human reality is that we have a hard time trusting. Especially if we've been hurt in trust situations, we have a really hard time trusting. And then you compound that with believing in God, which, although we might feel God, we can't see God, we can't, there's no direct in this world physical experience of God. So we have to work on our own feelings, we have to work on our own emotions and our perceptions about the presence of God in our lives. It's very easy to tempt God. If I don't get X, then you can't exist. If this person didn't get healed and cured, well, then you must not be real. It's so easy because we want to make God in our image. We want to make God as this judgmental being who we can disprove, so we can be free of the pressure to perform in a godly way, if we want to use that language. Thing is, that's never been Jesus' message. It's never been how God has presented the Bible. That's humans putting that imaging on God. That's not what we're about. So Jesus is telling through Hasatan that we're asked not to test God. Just trust God. It is not something that has to be proven to us. And the third temptation is the temptation of power. And this is a temptation that can be so easy to pull into our being before we even realize what has happened. Power is seductive. It is a wave. Those of us who have it have to be really careful about how we use it. Jesus is asked by Hasatan, if you come and follow me, if you worship me, then I will give you all of this land, all of these people under your control. That's a temptation very few people in power have ever walked away from. And it does not take a very long look at our political world, of our institutions, to see people who really, really like their power and do not want to share that and do their very best to block other people from power. But Jesus is saying, no, you worship God primarily. So these three tests are part of our lived reality too, very easy to fall into. But for him, it was getting rid of, instant gratification that removes our need to have God present, but also clutters our world. So that was number one. Number two is testing God. That, you're not giving me what I want, then how do I even know you're around? And number three is power. And Jesus resists all three of them. Now, he's ready to go do the work. As this pertains to our Lenten journey, our Lenten pathway, our Lenten study this year, getting into that part of us is going to be developed, it's a fantastic kind of model of where to look at our own blocks, where to see what is stalling us, or perhaps where we need to put a little more attention. Are we giving in to the temptation of testing God? Are we giving in to the seduction of power? Are we giving in to the desire for instant gratification? if we can be intentional about removing all of those, we will have an easier walk with God. Simpler walk with God, maybe not easier, but we will have a much clearer walk with God. Jesus has given us this model. Now Jesus is ready to get on with his ministry, and we can be too.